Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions. Well, maybe. Life is a fight.
It is.
In business, every day is a fight.
My gosh.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Yes, thank you, John David Wells. The big voice for the podcast from the Wells Report. Check him out on Facebook. You can seek him out. I believe it's still the Wells Report. I really should check that out at some point and make sure that it's still the Wells Report. Have I told you it's the Wells Report? Go ahead and check it out. JD Wells. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about their businesses and what's keeping them up at night. It's always something. And that's kind of what we talk about, in addition to a whole host of other things that we may go off on tangents. You will hear tangents here, I promise. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. If you want to watch it, great. My guests are typically better looking than I am, but if you like looking at my ugly mug, go right ahead. Or you can just listen as well. Pick your poison, whatsyourproblempodcast.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. And today, we got somebody coming in that's here in Middle Tennessee and is a mega entrepreneur. Has been self-employed for over 30 years. Mr. Gabriel Sedlak, sir. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. This is a treat. A real treat. I can't wait.
And I'll get into how I got familiar with you in just a moment. But of course, we always start everything off. We get the juices flowing, the energy moving with what we call the Random 5. Let me ramp this down and kick off the Random 5, always brought to you by Culioca Company. Check those guys out. Links in the description. If you want a cleaner that will actually do a very good job at cleaning, it's what you'd expect, naturally, and with probiotic technology, that's the best way to do it. Gabe, are you ready for the Random 5? These are completely random questions.
Very ready. Let's do it.
Here we go. If the transporters in Star Trek existed and you used it, your particles would be disassembled and then reassembled. Do you die every single time? Are you ever alive in two places at once? Or are you ever completely dead?
Oh, wow. No, I feel the whole experience from top to bottom.
I got to say, listen to that baritone this gentleman has. Great voice. Question number 2. What piece of culture or trend has died out, but you would like to see it make a comeback?
The stick shift, the manual shifting high performance cars.
Yes.
Please.
I had Mr. Jason Duncan. You know Jason?
I don't.
He was on my podcast a couple of episodes ago, and he purposely drives a Mini Cooper.
Oh, nice.
Because he says they're adult goat karts.
Yeah.
Those are great cars. I agree with you. You don't see too many stick shifts anymore. The analog version of driving. Question number 3. If you inherited a private jet from a stranger, what would you do with it?
Oh, wow. Make sure it was cleaned. I think the first thing is I would want it very sterile. I know it sounds like an odd answer, but I would want it.
I get why you would want that. You'd have to take a black light or something.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. That would be my first thought. It's not where I can go. Is it clean or not? Right.
You can only imagine the parties that are on. Question number 4, I believe. I was in radio. I'm bad at math, so I think we're on number 4. What's something from your childhood that used to be common but is now pretty rare? Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question.
Actually going outside and playing with nothing.
Right.
And having fun.
That was our generation.
Yep. Here's a stick, here's a rock. It's 10 hours of fun.
Here's a garden hose.
Right. That's real exciting.
Or a sprinkler, run through it. Okay, question number 5, and we'll wrap this up. What snack can you just not get enough of?
I snack on sparkling water.
Really?
It's not even, I tell you something, I have to have it all the time. I don't get it. It's not food related. It's the sensation of sparkling water and drinking it, and I have to have it.
It's I can see that, because in restaurants that's something I always order is soda water. I don't know if that's the same thing, but soda water with lemon or lime.
Yeah, and
it's just more refreshing.
And my whole family doesn't even want sodas anymore.
Really?
Yeah, the taste is a disdain at this point. So that is my snack, is sparkling water.
Hey, I need to redefine my snacks as well at this point. Well, there you go. The Random 5 brought to you by Kalioka Company. Once again, check the link in the description and please buy a few bottles. Let those guys know that I sent you. There we go. Mr. Sedlak, Gabriel, getting into things. You and I kind of became familiar with each other because a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Xavier Darden, I see a lot of your pictures posted in these beautiful vehicles that you buy, and I appreciate your fandom and taste in the Mercedes brand because I'm a huge fan as well. Never thought I would be, but I ended up selling the brand between 2013 and 2015, and my goodness, what a fabulous, fabulous vehicle.
It is that, the German mindset and the engineering mindset. I mean, they take those cars to such incredible lengths. For instance, the S-Class, which we have outside, have the new 2022 580 with the four-wheel steering, four-wheel drive. There's a fragrance runs through the car.
Yeah.
It's massaging you. It's high vibration in your seats. It removes you from all noise as much as you want to. It's 500 horsepower. There's something about getting in a machine that feeds you at all of those different sensory levels that you just can't put a price on. And it's very hard for car companies to do what Mercedes does.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get to experience that. When I sold cars initially, I sold Honda.
Yeah.
So I had literally a very limited scope of what Honda makes a great vehicle. The Accord was a tremendous vehicle that did very well for us. But, in the trim levels, you've got LX, EX, EXL, and a very limited scope. So I made the move to Mercedes on the recommendation from a customer that I had. One of these unbiased kind of observations that I didn't believe about myself, but he saw it in me. And he said, look, you can totally sell Heinlein. Really? Okay, yeah, go sell. I figured it out, moved to Mercedes. All of a sudden, my scope went from, my two hands in front of me to let's spread my arms out even behind me with options galore. So I'm like, I'm never going to learn this brand. But I did. And then eventually you really start getting into it. And the first time I drove a Mercedes was helping out another salesman. I had to take the car to get gas because I was still training and learning at the time. And they said, I sat and I'm like, okay, what really makes this a $65,000 car as opposed to a $35,000, high-end Accord? I sat in it and I go, oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I put my hands on the wheel. I go, oh, okay, I get it now. And then I start the engine up and I drive and I'm like, okay, I get it.
Right.
Sold. Instantly.
Yeah, it's like people.
There's something about it.
Yeah, they'll balk about a $500,000 supercar or you buy a Ferrari or Lamborghini until you get a professional take you on the track and show you what the car was designed to do. One thing, not to sidetrack, but what's always amazed me about how God has gifted people is, think about this. You dig in the earth, you pull out the minerals, the ore, the petroleum, right? Or you're getting leather from the cows, using silica, using copper, using light, paint, pigments, magnets, etc. And out of all of that, you whittle out all of the elements and you build a vehicle that can propel you.
Yeah.
It's such a tremendous. So when I get in a vehicle, I think about it much bigger than point A to point B wheels. I always have. And I think that's when you can connect with the passion of them.
It is quite amazing when you describe it like that.
Yeah.
I've thought about that myself. I'm like, at some point, all this came out of the earth.
All of it.
Crazy.
The glass, the sand. I mean, it's mind-bending.
And the other aspect of it is that the concept of the vehicle came from a singular human thought.
As everything does.
Right.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
But yeah, we're waxing philosophical here.
I like this. That's how we start.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the mutual friend with Mr. Xavier Darden. Go check him out at Mercedes-Benz of Music City. I'm like Mr. Plugged Man. You've been, I just saw the pictures and everything. I'm like, I love this guy. He's buying these amazing cars and, you're always popping up on their feed. You're always commenting and you're just a positive guy. You know what I mean? How did that all begin for you? How did your journey begin?
I think, first of all, I think I have the award. Xavier told me, he says, you've bought more cars than any other single customer we have. So that, I don't know that is an honor. I think it's probably a bit of my, stupidity and my insatiable desire for vehicles. But, the kids grow up and your needs change and then everybody has different wants. And so, and if you can make intelligent business decisions, then at least it's not just get a loan, pay a lot of interest and lose money. It's a little more advanced than that. But with Xavier, the whole car program started for me is we had the great pleasure of launching a network marketing company 14 years ago called Rodan Fields.
Yeah.
So I get this call. My buddy says, hey, man, you got a minute? I want to pitch something to you. I'm in another direct sales company. I've been in the industry forever. And he said, these doctors are going to be launching a new direct sales company, and they're going after, a much deeper target with a lot more science, and they created Proactive, et cetera. I said, John, if they are stepping into the space and half of that is true, my exact words with him is, we're going to make a fortune because we don't have to apologize, represent, or revalidate what they've already proven. We can smile and point. And when you have a product that you can smile and point, like a Mercedes, like these other, it really makes your uphill climb far less steep. So, we start off with Lexus, right? So we had Lexus, the car program. We had a 2010, 2011, 2012, 2014, 16, 18, 21, all LX 570s, had the LC 500, had these other Lexus. Then we switched to Mercedes. So then the car habit jumped into that. So we've had a whole ton of them now for the whole family, and some sports cars, race cars, SUVs, 3G wagons, things like that. And it's just been a real joy because they're just fantastic. And so I met Xavier because all dealerships are not created equal.
Right.
They're just not.
Amen.
Xavier, Sam Cavett, Edwin Vickery, the whole team out there, they were so exceptional. They became friends. I'd walk in the door and I said, hey guys, listen, we just switched car programs and we'd like to partner with a dealership where we can do big meetings here to bring consultants in from all over the region and do regular monthly meetings. Are you guys open to that? And they literally rolled out the red carpet for us.
Yeah.
And they became friends. And so I'd say it's the easiest place, probably not a good thing, but it's the easiest place I've ever bought a vehicle, probably ever.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. So Xavier is definitely the tip of the spear. And again, to double plug him, if anybody's looking for Mercedes-Benz, you have got to speak to Xavier Dart, and there just is nobody else.
Well, if you go back to some of the first episodes of this podcast, he's one of my guests. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Are you aware of the culture and how they forge that culture on an ongoing basis? And
I watch it at a macro level, just kind of at a distance. I ask a lot of questions, but not specifically.
Yeah. Joe Agresti is the CEO of the company and the owner. And I'm a huge fan of his. I've met him once down in the Woodlands at their dealership there.
Right.
And he, in my small interactions that I've had with him, things that I've heard, you can't help but become a fan because of just how he thinks, how he believes, and, all the things that happen in the car business itself. Typically is an ecosystem of negativity and backstabbing and just bad stuff. It's just how it is. But he's managed to, we don't need to do it this way. We can make our people feel empowered. They can help a customer out within reason on a dollar amount to make sure that their experience is of the best that we can possibly provide for them. That's what I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself all along in the car business, I'm like, it really isn't that hard to do that.
It's not. It's really not. If you make a friend and you make it easy, you'll never look for a customer again. And didn't he partner with Saban?
Yeah.
Nick Saban?
Nick Saban is also a partner in Birmingham and the Music City location.
And Louisiana one, I think, too.
Yeah.
In the Woodlands.
Is he in the Louisiana one?
I don't know if Nick's a part of it, but I think the Joe is definitely.
Joe owns that. That was his first dealership, was Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And the general manager is also the partner there, too.
Such a blessing.
Nick Pentis.
Well, anything they touch, they do X. Well, I've even said this in comments because I get all these questionnaires all the time, and this goes any industry, whether it's my coming out of direct sales, podcasting, being a business executive, politics, car sales, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When you do it as well as they do, I've said this. Hey, Mercedes, you should probably have these guys school your dealership network.
Yeah.
Just saying.
The thing is that the other dealerships, they know how to do it. It's an effort to perpetuate that kind of a culture and it comes down. When I sold them, we had difficulty getting timely loaners for, I would tell my customers, well, when I bring my car in for service, can I get a loaner? Yes. Just give us 4 weeks, and they would just be like 4 weeks.
Unacceptable.
That's just how it is,
Yeah.
And once upon a time at that dealership, it wasn't like that until corporates get their hands on stuff.
Corporates change things, yes.
But getting into your origin story, how did everything begin for you? How were you brought up, and how did everything start for you in getting into direct sales?
Wow. I think a lot of it, I would say a lot of it was, what else could I do?
Yeah.
Okay, for instance, so when I was raised in Atlanta, right there in Buckhead, and we were around a lot of very affluent political stuff, made a lot of money. We're always around the big shakers and the movers. My father, my mother. Then he gets, well, we all did, the swine flu outbreak.
Yeah.
So back in 74, 73, 74, everybody. So they said, we got to vaccinate everybody. So we all got it. The next day, my mom says that literally God woke her up. She goes into the living room, finds him suffocating on himself there on the couch. Mm-hmm. They called the ambulance. They trached him on the couch. He drew up 90 pounds. Guillain-Barré syndrome kicked in. That's what he got, Guillain-Barré. Drew his hands up, 90 pounds, 16 operations and 7 years of hospitals and nursing homes, losing everything we had, money out of our pockets. My mother had a nervous breakdown. We had 16 cats, 5 dogs. Utilities were cut off all the time. Challenges, problems, truant officers, no money, late for school, living on Social Security, no cars, taxis everywhere, men trying to take advantage of my mom. All of that stuff that tries to prey on you when you're weak.
Yeah.
And I was embarrassed my son and I were talking about this. I was telling my wife this. I was embarrassed to go to the grocery store. I was embarrassed to be in the car. I was embarrassed to be seen in public. I was embarrassed. Everywhere I went was a nightmare. It was a financial challenge or something. I used to scrape coins under Coke machines with coat hangers. I'd always keep a coat hanger in the car. I would sell blackberries. I'd pick them next to the thorn bushes so I'd get totally cut up. Scars all over me still from it. And I would fill cups with blackberries and knock on doors and sell them for 50 cents a cup so we could get $3, $4, $5 to put $2 of gas in our 74 Buick Electra 225, 2 cans of Slick Dog food at Winn-Dixie, a couple cans of Czech Cola, and a 50-cent pack of cinnamon rolls. That was like religious, or occasionally a Happy Meal. And so it was just feast or famine crisis, arguing, fighting. And so it just got so bad. I knocked on every door in the city. I sold everything. I would steal water from the neighbors. When we had our utilities cut off, I would take a pillowcase and knock on every door in the city. My mom would make stuff. I'd sell things out of our house. Hey, I had a flea market, or I was collecting cans for the needy. We were the needy, right? We was the needy.
Yeah.
And, I think all of that, people say, see, that stuff was meant to happen because it made you a better person, because look at all the lives you've changed now. And I say, no, those things happened. And don't look at my end result as being positive as the reasoning why that stuff happened. Because what if my end result was destructive? Would you still use the same logic and say those things happened, and look at you now, you're in prison or you're destroyed? Because what happens to you in life either makes you or breaks you. So I know that resilience, that fearlessness to knock on doors, to ask questions, to be entrepreneurial out of survival. When I saw a man, and I'll be quick, I'm almost finished. I saw a man one day walk in. I had joined a direct sales company. I was 18. I had a 67 Le Mans convertible and a giant head of hair, head of curly hair. And I would do these meetings and wear a suit, pull my hair back, do these meetings. And I was very good at it. And I saw the guy came in. The guy came in one day and he goes, hey, everybody, I've got to go. My wife and I and the kids came in. The wife came in. And they said, we're about to fly down to the islands, but if you need us, he says, you can get me on the phone. We're just going to be working from there. And his wife looked at him with eyes like, this is true. Mm-hmm. My husband loves me and we enjoy every minute of it. There was so much truth in the way they were exchanging, even eye contact and communication. The kids were right along with it. I said, I have seen nothing but chaos. I've seen people keeping up with the Joneses. You had to have an IBM job or work for Coca-Cola or live in the suburbs or make $100,000 a year back in the day, right? That was the ultimate. If you made $100,000 a year, you were something. Now you need that a month to really live. And, it's
true.
It's literally. And, but I saw that. I said, whatever these guys are doing, I saw that they had leverage. And so the direct sales model, the network marketing model, good, bad, or indifferent, just like everything has its challenges, is a leveraging model. And I saw people that had leverage, and I saw people that were being leveraged. And I said, I'll never do this again. I'm going to have leverage, period. And so it just got me. And I've done it ever since. I've helped launch companies from zero. And most recently, 14 years ago, we do a lot of other things now. But 14 years ago, when my friend called me, I said, give me the microphone. And I got to be the voice of reason that helped pioneer the movement that launched the whole company in the beginning from nothing. So it was a real honor to now countless lives have been changed because of what the financial upside has done for families.
And that was 2008, that Rodan and Fields.
August 26, 2008, I jumped in. They launched the company officially March 1st, 2008.
Was that here in the Southeast?
No, San Francisco.
Okay.
Right downtown San Francisco, but they didn't have any growth.
Yeah.
And they weren't direct sale. I mean, they're billionaire dermatologists, right?
Yeah.
They didn't know the model, but they knew the infomercial world. But now they were going into another thing. I'd come out of direct sales, and I said, look, if you give me the microphone, and a few of us banded together, a few personalities of hungry people, and we just got in front of people, and we were vision casters.
Yeah.
And life after life after life after life after life was changed. Now, countless thousands all over the world.
Right.
All
Well,
because we said yes.
You see that, I mean, a lot of the businesses you started early on are getting into, what was the first form of direct sales you did?
I was in A.L. Williams when it became Primerica.
Okay.
Art Williams was the football coach, buy term, invest the difference, insurance guy, put the entire industry, the insurance industry on its ear because he said, let's take it out of the power of the corporations and let's empower you through a network of associates. And it changed the whole industry. And so that it wasn't a fit for me, but that was my first taste. I did everything from mink oil when the mink oil thing was back big in the day. I remember this lady flew in a pink jet into the Peachtree DeKalb Airport, met us all at Denny's in the back room one time talking about that. I was just, skincare companies, all these, special formulas. But eventually you navigate and you find your way.
You find what, the platform that makes the most sense for you.
Yeah.
I mean, but in those instances, you were laying the foundations for your sales background.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fundamental and universal no matter what you're selling.
No matter what it is.
Yeah. But it becomes so much easier when you like what you're selling or it fits.
It does. But I also think it's a very sober, one of the things that people would ask me, they'd say, well, I could never sell anything I don't absolutely believe in.
Yeah.
And I would say, all right, do we really want to go there? Let's go ahead and qualify everything in your life with that same logic. And you'll find that people are pragmatic. They're prudent. They do what they have to do. They do what they need to do. Most people are involved and work for companies that they don't emotionally have a connection with. They're paying the bills.
Yeah.
So I say, listen, if you're involved in a direct sales company or whatever you're doing, and you are emotionally attached to it at the same time, fantastic. That's a great dividend. But if it's purely an engine and it's a redemptive product that makes a difference, that's okay. Then be Vanna White. Smile, turn letters, and point.
Yeah.
Because eventually they're going to read the phrase it pays.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds funny, but she doesn't do a whole lot but turn letters and smile. And if you turn enough letters for people and smile, pointing and smiling, you don't have to do a whole lot. And that's what I try to tell people. Take that posture, be the messenger, don't be the message. Get out of the way, smile and point, and you can make a fortune. But if you try to revalidate or be a salesperson or be the message, you are going to snare you and everybody else that you talk to.
Well, the one little offshoot and tangent that comes to mind is I wonder if Vanna White ever woke up and, just said, do I have to do this again today? My gosh, this is just monotonous.
Mindless. I've said that. Do I really want to talk about any of this anymore? But, you hate it some days, you love it some days. But, residual income is amazing.
That became, for me and Mercedes, when I sold that brand, similar to what you're talking about. For me, it was just shut up and get out of the way. And how do we facilitate this deal if it makes sense for you?
They know the car. They're going to come back and get it. Make it easy on them. Smile and point.
Everything that I thought was difficult before I got into that brand was not true. The numbers were just bigger. It was actually harder to sell Honda. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's actually easier to make, it's the same logic of it's easier to make $1 million than it is to make 50,000.
I'm still struggling with that notion, but I'm going to get there.
It's easier to make tens of millions than it is to make million.
Right.
Because everything works in your favor. Inertia, mindset, the people around you, the level of excellence, follow through. There's all of these, and it's a hard term. I heard a person say there's a bottom feeding mentality where everybody's cannibalizing just to pick this meat off the bones. And then there is a different mentality where the birds fly in the air and decide what they want to eat and swoop down on it. Yeah. And honestly, if you can redirect to that swooping down and your vantage point, that's what we coach on. On my mindset coaching, that's what I do. I say, listen, let's go ahead and we're going to jackhammer your head because you are standing in the way of really seeing your whole family get delivered. You're
going to appreciate this, and hopefully you'll be proud of me. I dropped my son off to school this morning for the first day of school, and on the way there, he's talking about something that he didn't like, and then as we were driving by his old middle school, he's like, I really hated that place. And I said, that's a really strong word.
That is a strong word.
I said, maybe strongly dislike, I get. He says, no, I hated it. I said, Spencer, I want you right now to pick out something positive. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I said, I want you to say something that comes to your mind, just whatever might be fine. He thought I was joking. I'm like, dude, I'm being serious. I said, you can be the person that picks out everything that's annoying, that is negative, that makes you mad or that you hate, or you can find the things that are positive. Okay, what's one positive thing right now that comes to mind? He goes, Cammie, his sister, she was going to be waiting for him because she's in 11th grade. He's going into high school right over there, actually. And he goes, she's going to be waiting for me. I'm like, there you go. There's a positive thing, dude. You have that.
Anchor on that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I said, you can really manifest your life by either choosing one of those two things. And I said, ask me how I know. How do you know? Because I used to do that. I used to be that guy that everything annoyed me. And
critical.
I got tired of it.
Yeah.
I got tired of it.
Cynical, critical, right? You see the ugly in everything.
Yeah, I started feeding my mind good stuff. I call it marinating my mind in good stuff. That's why I want to have good people to come on my podcast. That's why I listen to good podcasts. I don't listen to the news anymore. I'm tired of bad media. I'm tired of bad Facebook threads and all this other stuff and people that just live for arguing on Facebook. I'm like, what's the point?
You'll gain no ground
You'll
ever.
get nothing out of it.
Well, I've heard it said, and there's some very exceptional coaches, which I've also, everybody is a coach from somebody. Well, they say life is a series of mentors.
Yeah.
So you're either mentoring or you've been mentored. And so as I've been on my own personal journey, being mentored while I mentor others outside of the direct sales space, in it, entrepreneurs, you name it, businesses. But one thing they said is it's impossible to help someone until they can tell you what they want.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask about that.
And most people will tell you what they don't want, what they don't like, but to say what they want requires a completely different heart shakeup.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and I say this about our model. I wrote a book called Cut It Out, Getting Your Head Straight in Network Marketing, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of become an industry standard now because it's a very candid, very different. People are like, my God, I cried or I dog-eared every single page. It's destroyed. I need to buy a second book. And that's an honor when you write a book that's that effective.
Yeah.
And so in the book, we talk about all of these mindset points at length. And I said, listen, if you can't tell me what you want, but all you can do is tell me what you don't want, what you don't like. See, the direct sales industry, being an entrepreneur, forget direct sales. I'm talking about entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
Because, the whole world knows how to work for a corporation, right? Right? They go to work faithfully every day, 60 hours a week. They don't take sick. They miss out on kids' games. They work faithfully to the death for the 401k
what they've been
and for the
conditioned to
insurance.
think.
Condition, right? Go to school, get a degree, and the whole time you are disposable.
Yep.
Like it or not, people, you're disposable because unless you're actively pursuing your dreams, somebody's hired you to fulfill theirs.
No leverage.
No leverage. And so, and here's what we do is we hang our whole lives on it. So you get a career, you move the kids, you move the family, you buy a house, you get credit card debt, cars, all in the guarantee that a company has got your back indefinitely.
Yeah.
And I say, you're disposable if they sneeze the wrong way. And so this whole shift, but people will do that faithfully to the death.
Yeah.
But as soon as they have to become an entrepreneur or direct sales or step out on their own, most can't do it only because now there's a mirror in their face and every single day they have to reckon with them.
Yeah.
And if they can win that battle, which I show them how to do, you can do anything. Then you're never dependent on anyone and you go from being leveraged to having leverage.
How long does it take typically for people to have that aha moment when you're coaching them?
Sometimes it's the first day.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes it's the first hour, the hour over coffee or doing the the video call or whatever. It's here's the thing. We live in a world where also people are very conditioned to be self-saboteurs. One of the big Achilles heels of me growing up, right, was my dad got catastrophically ill, right? Mm-hmm. But he was a world changer, right? He was the youngest member, as I told you before we did the podcast today, youngest member of Czech Parliament, spoke 7 languages, Radio for Europe, they wanted him to be prime minister, had favor with the people, et cetera, et cetera. All these amazing stories growing up, much, much older. He's, my namesake, much older than my mom. And the interesting thing about it was he was this great man on the world stage that did great things and changed the world. And then as a young kid, I see him in a hospital bed, paralyzed. Mm. So in my young mind, all greatness ends in futility.
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Were you aware of that at that point, or it was just subconscious?
As a very young, I'm talking 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Fatalism was very attractive, or I should say, attracted to me.
Right.
What difference does it make? But at the same time, I swear God, it just reached through all that noise and somehow anchored my soul until I was old enough to get it. But all greatness ends in futility. Why try? So I became a master of being a self-saboteur. Yeah. So I would do great things, be the best at whatever it was, but I would get right to the peak of the summit. And then I would create something subconsciously to break it up, start over, get fired, mess it up, screw it up, so that then I would reconfirm the core belief where my ceiling was.
So the other shoe has got the drop phase of your process there. When's it going to drop? When's everything going to drop?
Here we go again. This isn't going to last. Well, we got this car. I wonder if it's going to last.
I don't deserve what I'm getting.
Right.
Was that what they call that? Imposter syndrome, right?
And you create a life where you desperately, money becomes the evil and the necessary.
Yeah.
Everything becomes desperate and the problem.
Yeah.
And so anyway, greatness ends in futility, because I thought, movies like The Bridges of Madison County, right? Better to have lived once and lived and loved illicitly the wrong than to never have loved at all, but I'll spend the rest of my life tortured after having that one experience. Or Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare appeals to the human nature of self-sabotage and fatalism. The book of Job, Ecclesiastes, all of these things people attach themselves to because it makes sense of the human condition. And literally, this is going to get theological. Hopefully your listeners can handle it. But one day, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, actually, was a couple layers of it, and I literally heard a voice say, "You know what's held you back all this time? Sit down, let me tell you." Mm-hmm. And I heard a scent like a dad, like that grandfather sitting on that leather couch in that giant dark office with books all over the shelves with wisdom galore, and said, "You think all greatness ends in futility because of the pattern of your father, and you see this and you see this, and so you create an expected end for yourself."
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, it snapped off of my life. And the next breath, Jim, it left me.
Right. Wow.
Isn't it interesting how quickly we can be delivered? Well, they say once you get what gets revealed gets healed.
For me, it was a moment when I was at the Mercedes dealership, and I had gotten out of radio to do this. And the hope was that Mercedes would solve a lot of our financial problems. Right. We'd finally be able to make some good financial decisions, take some vacations that we never could take when radio. It was a single income family, always have been. Mm-hmm. But in radio, as we all know, it doesn't pay very well. Getting into the car business, I thought I'd be able to get paid better. I was to a certain extent. But I had a customer that came in. We hit it off immediately. She and her husband both bought cars from me. And she brought her car in to get a few things done to it. So we sat at my desk and just chatted. And we just got along famously. She's wonderful. And I just got it. I went on this tangent. I don't know where it came out of, but I was like, I'm going to be 40 this year.
You felt safe to do that there with them.
Yeah. It's like she's like my wife. People just feel safe just to, hey, I met you 5 minutes ago. I'm going to tell you I'm just going to dump on you.
Yeah.
So I just started telling her, look, I said, yeah, it's just like, even in this place, I feel like I just can't get traction. And everything I feel like I'm doing is just failure, and nothing ever seems to work out the way it's supposed to be. And I never thought I would actually, at age 40, I thought I'd be so much farther along financially.
I should be here by now.
I should be. I'm behind the 8 ball. And how some people, like I was telling you about Greg Miles, who looked at me and said, "It's always something."
Always something.
There's those little nuggets of wisdom that people tell you that you'll always remember for the rest of your life. And this is one of them. She looked right at me. She goes, "My gosh, you are so hard on yourself." And I was like, oh. It was like getting hit in the gut. I said, thank you. But now why do you say that? She goes, do you realize why you don't have money in the bank? And I said, no. She says, because it kept your kids home with your wife. Your wife was able to actually pour into them. That's where it went. So your investment is in your kids. They've had a mother who's been able to, that's their home when they come home from school, that's poured into them and shaped them as human beings. That's okay. And I was like, thank you.
What a gift.
My goodness, thank you. And it reshaped, that whole job reshaped my entire life. It was amazing.
Really? That was the shifting point.
That was my college education. You talk about how the self-saboteur, was shaped in you with your dad. It was a similar thing for me. I was kind of the black sheep of the family. My parents always wanted my brother and I to go to college. My brother did. He was always the successful student. He was typically got good grades. He was an excellent musician, still is. He went off to college, from what I understood, up until recently, I guess he didn't. But I was always under the impression that he did a really good job with college.
Yeah, I've got something to share with all of you.
Yeah. And, he went off to law school, and Jimmy, well, I think at one point my parents just kind of looked at me and said, let's just get him, out of the house, and not that they gave up on me, but I'm looking back on it, I've always had that impression. And it was always impressed upon people like us in our generation. If you don't go to college, you're done.
It was rammed down your throat.
Yeah.
You're groomed for it out of the gate.
Yeah. So if you don't go to college, you're going to fail. So I worked with my dad in a blue collar capacity, doing telephone system installation and wiring. That turned into being an electrician at some point. So I was always going to these white collar offices in White Plains, New York, around that area, lawyers' offices, doctors' offices, and these people just look down at you.
Yeah.
My father was like, you need to reshape the way you think. You're a hero to them. And I'm like, dude, I don't feel like a hero at all. I feel like an idiot. And, because I never went to college, that always hung over me.
Well, the Northeast, it's super drilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always felt like I would never be a success because of that one thing.
Well, I didn't go to high school either. I was Mercy passed, and I finally got a GED in my 20s because I thought you had to.
Yeah.
I heard a great quote the other day. They said, I don't know who said it. It was, if college is such an intelligent and brilliant must, then why won't banks finance it if it's such a big deal? They won't. It's big business is all it is.
Oh, yeah. It's a way for people to hang paper on a giant mortgage.
Unless you have to be, a doctor, an attorney. I get that.
Honestly?
But these days you might be able to watch YouTube and be a better doctor or an attorney.
That's the thing, is that you're not even YouTube. But a lot of people realize, doctors one thing.
Apprenticeship,
yes. Go to medical school and stuff like that. But being an attorney, you can literally, hey, I just want to I'll live in the law library, show me what to do. And at some point I'll take the bar.
And eventually you will get more through osmosis.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
That you can still make it happen.
But college is big money.
It's huge money.
And I don't say that because I didn't. But what percentage of people have degrees and never use them? So at the end of the day, you're either being leveraged or you have leverage.
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to the biblical precedent of seed time and harvest. Any man can count the seeds in an apple, but God can count the apples in a seed.
Yeah.
That's not a verse. That's just a quote. And you can, because you have to tap into the potential of the seed. One seed lying dormant can sit there for 1,000 years. But if it's tapped into and the potential of it, you can have 100,000 acres full of apple trees, all with apples bearing seeds. They've done experiments where they've gone into the desert, the hottest, most stripped desert regions, and they've done 1 acre squares where they would take, those giant metal retaining walls you see in construction when you drive by, and you'll see those the scoopers digging real deep, and they have to hold the walls up so the guys can work so it doesn't fall in on them. Right? Yeah. Well, they took something like that. It's like 30 feet deep, 40 feet deep, or tall, I should say, these retaining walls, and they do a 1 acre square in the desert. 1 acre square. They only irrigate the center of the square. Mm-hmm. So no water can get out of it because of that retention wall that's gone so deep into the ground. And stuff grows in that sand that has been seen for thousands of years.
Wow.
So seed potential never dies. It's always environment.
Yeah.
It's always environment. So I just encourage people through what I do. Let me just get your head, get your mindset, and get you to have a different vantage point so that you can be elevated into a different environment, because your potential will never be realized unless you're in a different environment with different watering and different input. So, yeah.
I always tell my kids, if you want to see what your life is going to look like, just look at your friends.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. I mean, it's birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Flock, they really do.
Well, you could take a 10-year-old, take them to NASA, let them work with SpaceX. You know this, if they were in the environment with the people, pushing the buttons, messing around, they could run any of it. It's not age.
Right.
It's proximity and being allowed in the club.
Right.
That's all it is.
To find your way into the club.
That's it.
That's all. If you want to learn how to be, like the other day, a friend of mine, Brian Covey, who I help him with his podcast as well. He reaches out to me a ton of the time to pick my brain about podcasting and all this other stuff. And he's telling me, he's like, oh yeah, we took out a HELOC and we're investing in 2 more houses in Orlando. I'm like, dude, I got to pick your brain, because we're at that point where we need to start thinking in that direction and just get around those people that do that, Well,
they say wealthy move money.
Yeah.
Poor spend money.
Yeah.
It's about shifting money.
What means having the wily, the smarts to do it.
Yeah.
And
being around somebody that's actually done it, because God knows the blind lead the blind.
Yeah.
And if everybody has done the exact same thing that everybody did on every other corner around you, how is your worldview going to be any different? It's not.
Right.
You'll never know, because you're never around it. That's one thing I coach people. I say, we're going to force you to go around excellent people, excellent restaurants, excellent experiences, go to excellent places. Clean up your mouth. Now the F word is used by everybody all the time. It's the new replacement word. I always say, man, they lost another opportunity to actually use real language. Are you
talking about Gary V?
Look, and and it's really sad, because when they confront him, and they're all doing it, all the top gurus, everybody loves this horrible language. And he says, I'm authentic to me. I'm authentic. And if I did it, I curse to my family. I curse to my kids. I curse to everybody. I tell my mother, my son, my brother. I tell them all that this. And he says, I'm authentic. If I didn't do it, I'm like, no. You're conditioned. And now you're trying to justify it, because anytime that comes up, you're just not strong enough to face it, because excellence doesn't need it. To use language that everybody uses now actually steals them a real opportunity to use real words to express something at a far more profound level.
Yeah.
And so I say, clean up your language. Let's look at your social media. There's a lot of things people can do, because you want to quarantine yourself from being so debased, because people may applaud you, and they may buy your mug and wear your T-shirt, but they'll never invest in you, and they'll never let you in to the inside or the really important, influential places, because there's just no character.
Yeah.
And so I just say, look, if we can clean you up just a little bit in your mindset, what you say, how you say it, what you look at, what you think about, who you are, what you think about yourself, self-sabotage, not deserving. How about being the kind of person that gives to everybody else to your own demise, but as soon as you have to do something for yourself, you feel guilty and justify it? We got to kill that one too.
Yeah. And
suddenly the person is completely transformed and placed in a different strata.
Yeah.
Almost overnight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Long.
What is it? What is that? No. It's a play, and I can't think of the name of the play, where they have to make her into a different woman. Anyway, it'll probably come to me. Okay. My old man brain, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, let's go ahead and get to. Here we go. This is the gist of the podcast. Are you having any problems? I mean, anything that keeps you up at night? I mean, there's got to be something, right? That comes to mind?
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Got it right down. Well, I'll answer it by asking a question.
Sure.
Do you know what your biggest problem is?
Mine. Mm-hmm. I mean, where do I begin?
No, you're not supposed to answer it, but I just say this. So,
do I know?
Your biggest problem to every answer that you need answered is obscurity. Nobody knows you.
Right.
And so known beats best every time. You can have the best hamburger in the city, but the best known is going to beat the best every time.
Right.
And we are all in this world right now where social media and the world pits each other against each other because you're competing and you're fighting for eyeballs and attention. And anything you do in life and anything you are and any level of success, we have to become media people. We have to become marketers. If we are not scaling eyeballs, doesn't matter what you think, do, or want to do, there's 40,000 distractions a day that are louder than you or I. And so what keeps me up every night is obscurity. I'm going to walk out my front door. Jim, I'm going to walk out with a giant metal ladle and a copper pot and whack the daylights out of it until every neighbor comes outside. Yeah. You almost have to be that person if you really want to be bold and brave. So my whole problem and my answer and my pursuit is becoming far more seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I mean, I think and you have a lot to say to the world. You know?
Yeah, I do.
And I'm glad that you're willing to put yourself out there because there's a lot. Like we mentioned him earlier, Joe Agresti. He's got just so much to share with the world that is so good. But he doesn't want to pat himself on the back. He doesn't want to be the guy. My business partner here at J Squared, he's got a lot to share with the world. He just doesn't know how to wrap his head around. He's like, why me? I haven't really done anything yet. And I'm going, no, you have. You're really smart and good at what you do. You're building what's going to be the foundation of your springboard into your personal branding. I said, but there's nothing wrong with starting now and talking about that.
Well, a lot of people are completely paralyzed with this concept that they have to make X number of dollars or hit this imaginary threshold before they feel legitimate enough to be bold enough to speak enough. And I always say this, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm just getting started. The gift is in me. I've got to start somewhere. That level of honesty is huge. And so we see it in our business. Well, let me get a few checks under our belts, or people that I'm trying to coach about whatever they're trying to pursue. They say, well, I just need to make more money, or maybe drive a better car, or it's almost like there's this mirage that people are constantly chasing, and they're waiting to hit this imaginary spot before they get bold. One of the things that I used to shrink back with was the reason I wasn't more vocal is because I didn't want the kickback.
Right.
I just didn't want to deal with the flack. Because remember, if you do everything right, they hate you. You do everything wrong, they hate you.
Yeah.
Heard an amazing man say this the other day. He said, look for dragons to slay.
Yeah.
Look for them. He says, because if you look for the dragons in your own life and your own shortcomings and this and that and the other, whatever you need to overcome, he says, it's always where the gold is.
Yeah.
He says, if you look for a dragon, you slay it. They're always sitting on the gold. And you almost want to say, you know what, if there's a hardship or there was a wall, people say, well, if it's supposed to happen, it's all going to work out. I completely disagree with that. We can go very long theologically with that one. And I could prove my point. The other thing is that, we say, well, I'm just waiting on the door open, or if the door's closed, or I'm just waiting on God. And I'm like, no, he's waiting on you.
Yeah.
What is it? I love the verse. It says, let your light so shine so that when men look at your deeds, they glorify God because of your example. No. So what's the operative word? Let. Mm-hmm. Let. Let is on me.
You're in control of that.
We are thermostats. We are not thermometers. We set the temperature. And everything around us behaves.
Right.
We've got to shift from being the thermometer to being the thermostat. Mm-hmm. And so now I'd say letting my light so shine, breaking obscurity so the world can hear my message, and maintaining a posture of being a thermostat, not a thermometer, I'd say are three really great pillars.
Well, in the past couple of years, you feel like you're getting more prominent?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Because I'm getting a lot louder.
Yeah. Because, that's, again, I found out about you through the Mercedes dealership. I haven't heard of you prior to that, but are you finding that to be a little bit more of a...
Yeah, and frequency builds trust. You have to, okay, let's just be real honest. Right now, you and I have a $1 million a month marketing budget,
right.
$1 million a month marketing budget. Well, you can hire a guy to run your Facebook ads, a guy to run YouTube ads, a guy to run your Instagram ads, right? You could hire the camera crew. They follow you around, they video stuff, and you could sell whatever widget or whatever it is you have or you're trying to market, right? We all know that would work and it would spool up because you'd have a team doing it. How do you do it organically?
Right.
Well, you have to do it organically by rapid fire, daily, consistent exposure until you hit those thresholds.
Yeah.
So that then you can bring in team. You cannot do it by yourself. And I think the big mistake I've had is I've tried to do it myself.
Well, that's how you start.
It's how you start. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah,
right?
and it's funny. You're reminding me of a podcast episode I listened to recently with Ed Milet. Are you familiar with him?
Gotta love me some Ed Milet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's had his kids on, and they're talking about how they began with his podcast, and it was a son that was actually falling into learning how to produce a podcast and audio produce and all that fun stuff. And it was funny for me to listen to it because I'm going, well, I probably could have helped you with that, but I didn't know of you back then. But he's got one of the biggest podcasts out there now.
Out there, well, and my kids, my son Aiden, who's sitting right here, I let him handle the mindset of the social media. People say, well, you don't need the excuse is not, let me find somebody younger. No, it's just, I know what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Give me a microphone. Let me share my heart. Can somebody please edit this stuff and get it to the world?
Right.
I've got answers. Mm-hmm. I'm terrible at a lot of things. I ain't bad at this.
Right.
I know my stuff. Ed actually got his background, his start in direct sales network marketing.
It was WMG, right?
I believe so.
Or was it World Marketing Group?
World Ventures.
World Ventures.
Yeah.
Yep. And
so many of these guys did, because you get real thick skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he's how to build teams.
And he's an amazing speaker, and he's got a new book out. You guys have a lot of similarities.
I would adore speaking to Ed.
And that's the thing is that, with a podcast, all things are possible, and I'm not pitching you on podcast services, but maybe
I'm pitching myself. Ed, if you hear this, I want to talk to you.
Because Ed listens to every single one of my episodes.
You might be surprised.
I might be surprised.
Well, what's funny is the person that listens, everybody has these moments in life where there's these shifting points.
Yeah.
For instance, I met my wife. It's a very long story. That may be for another day, but very, very short. At this really deep place and moment in my life, I was so pregnant with expectation that I was going to meet my wife. I couldn't even think straight. So my racing motorcycle, my friends were, I said, I want to hang out with you guys tonight. I literally cannot express to you, and I need to find somebody that actually thinks deeply because none of you guys do. And so I found one of my friends. I said, where are you at? He says, I'm over here. So I went to his house. We hung out. We talked all night. And then when I was leaving the next day, he said, hey, man. He reaches in his pocket. He goes, my dad, hold on, I got, oh, yeah. He opens his wallet and he says, I've got a coupon. Do you ever go to McDonald's? Mm-hmm. I said, well, yeah. He goes, well, it's a free quarter pounder meal off of the Monopoly French fry box.
Yeah, I remember those.
I put it in my wallet. The next day at 11:30, hunger hits me like a freight train. I said, oh my gosh, I don't have any money. My motorcycle's low. Oh, I need the coupon. Yeah. So I rode all the way to McDonald's. And as soon as Jim, this is for real, the curb of the property from the road to McDonald's property, the front tire of my motorcycle tapped that curve at the exact same time that my wife's black Xtera's front tire tapped the curve.
Wow.
Soon to be wife. And when this girl goes by in the car, I literally felt like somebody took my heart and just tore it out of my chest. And I started shaking. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but whoever's in that vehicle, I need to know who's in that vehicle.
Yeah.
And guess what? We haven't spent a day apart since. We got married 6 months to the hour later.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
And
all
how long have you been married?
Of a McDonald's coupon.
There's some goodness in McDonald's after all.
Yep.
What and how long have you been married?
Almost 18 years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
We hit 20 last year, my wife and I.
It's incredible.
She saw me across the room when we were 18 and 17 and knew she was going to marry me.
Wait, 2003.
03, yeah. That would make sense.
03, 04, what was that? Is that 18 years?
That's 18 years. 01 was 20 for us.
Wow, time is...
Yeah.
It's incredible. My oldest, he's 16, so...
I will say, and here's my advice to you, podcasting will be the answer to all your prayers because it's a marketing machine, podcasts.
People love to listen to them. I'm about to do my Audible on my book.
Good.
And I know that that's a big plus because people will read, but they're not reading like they used to. Not in sit-down flip pages. I love doing that because I highlight the daylights out of it, but I also adore Audible and audiobooks. So podcasting, same thing. Yep. While you're walking, running, on your way to work, whatever, podcast.
Jason Duncan, the gentleman I mentioned earlier who drives the adult go-kart, the Mini Cooper, he says, it's funny, people are more impressed to hear that you have a podcast than you are a published author these days.
I believe that.
And I'm going, really? He goes, yeah. And it's funny because on another episode of a podcast I listened to it 3 times, It's from Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And he talked to a bunch of people in Vegas, a bunch of my contemporaries, and clients of mine actually flew out for this conference. I think it was a real estate mortgage conference. And he spoke there. And it's funny because I saw all their pictures with him, and I was so jealous. But he said, look, if you're not putting out 15 to 20 pieces of content a day.
He does 80 a day.
Yeah.
When you chop it up between reels, stories. But you're right. And people say that's impossible. No, it's not. You cut a video.
Right.
You
know how many
suck
pieces
the
of
audio,
content I can get out of this episode right now?
Scads.
Yeah.
And then you can do verticals, right? You can do stories, you can do reels, you can do all the stuff. And 80 a day chopped up if you really want to slice and dice. You know, to take the pizza and cut it to a lot of slices.
Yep.
It's still pizza.
Yep.
And so I'm learning that. I have a podcast. It's called the Network Podcast. But, you know, whether I'm going to keep the name, change the name, I did probably, 25 good episodes on it. And it's still out there. But it's just like anything. It's another thing I need to be consistent with.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful medium. So I have to hand it to you because the way you have this thing set up and the level of excellence that you operate in is pretty fantastic.
I'm just used to radio studios, and I like the way
This
things
is so
sound.
effortless for
Yeah.
you. You're just flowing.
Because I modeled this, and I don't know if I should admit this to you, but I like the fly on the wall camera aspect, similar to a Howard Stern and how he does his show.
Yeah.
It's not like we're looking into a camera like MSNBC where they're interviewing people.
Right. Hi.
I cannot stand Zoom
Teleprompter.
podcasts. I hate them. I did a Zoom podcast for years called the Weekly Primer, and I mean it got me in front of some pretty cool people. But I like a face-to-face conversation. It just sounds right.
I agree.
It feels right.
And there's something that comes out of you that's the language is different, the inflection in the voice, the emphasis is different. How you describe stuff is so very different conversationally.
Yeah.
Now I'm probably like you. I can I do this constantly. I hook the phone up in my car and I'll sit there and I'll just go off and I'll start doing training videos and I put it all over the place. We do a weekly email. I got all kinds of cool stuff out there, but we do that and I can do that very easily. I always tell people this too. Listen, if you want to get your voice out, pick up your crazy phone and just talk into it.
Yeah.
And load it. Mm-hmm. Load it broken, load it messed up. Who cares if it needs edits? Who cares if the lighting is right, the sound is right, there's a kid screaming in the background. Just get your voice out there.
I've told so many people that, and they'll come up with a myriad of excuses.
My entire upstairs is nothing but equipment.
Nice.
Cameras, lights, everything.
Yeah. You need your studio like this.
I have one that's kind of like this. It's pretty cool. But guess all I really need, if I'm honest, if I have a cell phone and my battery's charged.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in today. You can do podcasts on your cell phone.
You could.
You can do a video podcast on your cell phone, strip the audio out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a whole multitude of ways.
So yeah, being known and taking obscurity and breaking it once and for all.
Another thing is defining the word you own.
Yes.
What is the word that you own?
Mindset.
So mindset shaping, coaching, a lot of Bob Proctor type stuff, or
I would say there's some similarities there.
Yeah.
The renewing of the mind, the battlefield of the mind, between the ears. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Be it so according to your faith. Speak things that aren't as though they are. All the biblical precedent, all of the stuff that, how you see something is everything. Vantage point. I'm going to do another course. I have a course called the Momentum Sessions, which is pretty heady, but then I'm going to be doing another one called Vantage Point, and it literally talks about elevating your vantage point. And when you do, for instance, in one of the little pictorials in it is if you're a bug and you're in your yard, and this yard out here is huge, right? And you're a bug and you finally get strong enough and brave enough to get to the top of a blade of grass.
Yeah.
Right? You can see this on camera.
Yeah.
And you get above the other blades of grass. Suddenly, that dark green canopy that you're in, your vantage point's very different. You can almost see where the house is, where the water is, the driveway is, the shade is, right? You go higher. You go higher. It doesn't take the second floor of a house. The view is very different. An eagle can soar on the thermals and just decide what it wants to snack on.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You want to get your vantage point position to a place where you decide to fly on the thermals, which does not require a lot. So the higher up you go, the more success you have and the more vantage point you have, the easier it is to soar and the more selective you are in life about what you want.
Yeah.
And you realize you're not limited. If you're in a maze or a labyrinth, right? What happens? Every corner, but you just have to go to the top of the bushes. Or if you go 30 feet higher, or if you go 100 feet higher, you go, wait a minute, I could have taken 2 left turns, 1 right turn, I would have been out. Instead, I went in circles and I died.
Yeah.
It's always vantage point. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you got to.
One of the biggest things is differentiator these days, because there's a lot of people in that space. It's a crowded space. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in the coaching, that kind of a space, don't have the pedigree that you do. And that's going to come across. People are going to, people's BS meters are very highly attuned. They're going to, I come across guys all the time that, put their paid sponsorship ads up, and I can instantly tell that they're just throwing fluff, for their course or whatever, or something like that. But what's going to get you noticed are the hard truths that you believe in, that may not be popular. And I call it the Howard Stern effect, right? If you can get people to start paying attention because what you're going to say next, that's a good place to be. Really good place.
And a lot of people in the space, and again, I gain nothing by laying an indictment on anyone or saying I'm better than anybody else. It's absolutely not. But I will say that I do me well, so I don't have to do them well.
Right.
I don't need to judge or scrutinize anybody else because I know where my sweet spot is. I know where my talent. If I ask 10 people, when you look at me, what would you say my number one gift is? When you look at me, you know me. What's my number one gift? And I can ask 10 people, and they're all going to come up about the same thing.
Right.
Mindset, inspiration. I feel bigger, larger, increased, more hope. When I get around you and your wife, your family, your kids, we just are like, what? And it opens up their world to us. I'm like, just give me a microphone, give me an ear, we'll do this. And I think that's it. You own you, and then you don't have to be like, a lot of the time a leader is this. You'll appreciate this. A leader is, I have a key to a room you can't get in, but if you ask me nicely or pay me, right? High ticket, I'll give you the key to the peek in the room. But when you get in that room, I have another key that gets into another room where the real secrets are. Yeah. And then if you really, so it's always this, I've read the chapter before you, but we're going to stay on this chapter. You're not allowed to flip. And that type of stuff, unfortunately, is paper thin. Yeah. And there's a tremendous amount of people right now, and I'm guilty for this, but I spent in the last 30 months, well, not the last 30 months, goodness, it's been a long time, but there was a 30-month period where I honestly felt as though I had to have somebody else give me the answers. I had to find experts, which you do. You always need coaches. Even the best baseball player, the best pitcher, the best hitters, they all need coaches, right?
Yeah.
But I spent $130,000 on mazes and rabbit trails and the next thing I needed to do and it was, I said, what have I done? Have I convinced myself that I'm so desperate for somebody to, and all it was you have to, sometimes you justify your fee or your expenses because of how complicated you can make it for your quote customer.
Yeah.
So I was the victim, and I was stuck in this very complicated thing that was constantly being fed all of this complicated stuff. So I felt like I was always missing something, but we never arrived to anything. Yeah. Nothing was ever created. Nothing was ever accomplished. So I took total control about everything, my websites, my course, my access to codes to everything. So what happens, I change things on the fly, and I do it.
Yeah.
And I don't wait for anybody. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you could even make a whole episode out of that. And the reasons why you did all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of pain.
Yeah, that's okay.
A lot of scars. And
pain. Be transparent. And
people love that.
They do, because it's relatable.
Yeah.
You're just like, who's really transparent? Brad Lee?
I like Brad Lee.
You love Brad Lee.
Yeah.
He is, and I've had him on.
It's his brutality. People love it.
It's his, but that's how you get the real Brad Lee when you meet him in person.
That's why it's called the real Brad Lee.
Yeah. I've had him on the podcast as well, and every time he's in the room, it's kind of intimidating. But as I'm getting to know him, it's not so intimidating. But he's one of these guys that is really making himself vulnerable as of late,
which is more powerful than ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy.
Look at me. Look at my stuff. I did it. You can too. Just go for it. Not true. If you're brave enough to share your pain and your shortcomings and your struggle, It's such a powerful tool.
That's why I appreciate Gary's approach to things, because so many of them sell, well, anybody can be a rock star. So can you. No, they can't.
Nope.
That's the reality. But Gary says, look, you need to find what makes sense for you.
That's it.
You need to find, if you're happy making 75 grand a year, then good, do it. Knock yourself out, man.
Right.
Yeah. If that's the, I teach my kids all the time. I don't care if you go to college. If you want to go to college, we'll figure out a way. But trust me, we haven't saved for it. I said everything went into your upbringing.
Yeah, drum roll, please.
Yeah, I said, look, we'll figure out a way. We'll make it make sense. You're not going to take out a mortgage-sized load of debt. But if that's something you want to do, and you know why you want to do it, we're going to go ahead and figure out how to do that. But at the same time, your 20s are for figuring you out.
Well, I also believe that we've become masters at suppressing dreaming and hoping. And the society is they love to assist you. The two crabs in a pan story, right? Mm-hmm. You put a crab in a pan, a shallow pan, he'll get out. Shallow pan. You put him back in the pan, he gets out. Put him back in the pan, gets out. Put him back in the pan, gets out. Put two of them in the pan, they drag each other down till they both die. There's something about that. So the truth, half the time, is people settle because they don't know that there is another possibility. Vantage point.
Yeah.
If you're a ground-dwelling creature your whole life, and we saw this great picture of an eagle swoop down in the water, grab a fish, and it's one of my slides that I use on my trainings. And I go this whole thing, go pretty deep into it, and it goes up, and now there's this eagle with talons harpooned through this fish. His mouth is wide open and his eyes are huge, and he's 500 feet in the air. Even though he's about to meet his demise, he sure had a different vantage point for a short period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And something had to take him and jerk him out of the water and take him higher. So I honestly think that people settle because they've been masters of conditioning. And if they knew that there was something truly better, people wouldn't settle for relationships. Girl, you look good, or I'm in love with love, or settling for somebody because you don't feel like you're worthy enough to actually something of value, and somebody of value is unattractive to you because the abuse or the negativity or the cyclical relationships confirm how you see yourself. So you repeat that. If somebody knew what a real man was like, a real marriage was like, real peace was like, financial freedom was like, they would, excuse the language, fight like hell to get it.
Right.
No matter what.
I'll leave you, and you could share this story. I'm going to share it with you. Speaking of perspective and getting vantage point, when I became fully self-employed, it happened in 2016 by accident. I got let go from the last job I had. That was the second time in 3 years it happened to me. First time around, I was entertaining the notion that's actually when I got into the car business. It was a transitory job between radio and the automotive industry for me. It just didn't work out. I ended up going into the car business anyway. But for a moment there, I was like, I could do the production voiceover video thing full time. And my wife was like, I think we need to do it. Yeah, you're right. And it turned out to be one of the best educational experiences I've ever had. But getting out of the car business, another transitory job that I had, talk to them today. Actually, I'm having the owner next week on the podcast. That job ended, not by my choice, but I understand why. But we literally had one paycheck to go before just calamity. That was it. For a family of 5 with a mortgage, with insurance, all the bills that come along with it. And on the way home, I called my wife and she says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm doing my thing. Well, what about, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's great.
And she says, well, what if it doesn't? I said, well, what if it does? Let's shift our thinking. Okay. We had planned a Disney trip in May of that year. This happened in March 1st, actually. And, she says, what about Disney? I said, we're going. Well, how are we going to go? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out, but we're going. I promise you. We're going to, somehow it's going to happen. Oddly enough, Gabriel, what ended up being a week-long, very inexpensive vacation for the first time for my family to go to Florida and see Disney World turned into a 2-week vacation where they also got to see the Atlantic Ocean. We went to South Florida because I booked a video gig at a client of mine that I had up here in Nashville. They actually worked at a dealership down there. So while I was working filming videos, my family was able to go to the beach. So we had 2 weeks in Florida. You never know.
It was all a write-off because it was business.
Oh, yeah. That was that
That's
aspect of it.
podcast.
But at the I never knew what was possible. What was possible. In the first few weeks, I tell people all the time, I said, look, every little project that came in, I looked at all the monetary value. Okay, this pays the electric bill. This project's going to pay the mortgage. This project, and now next week is paid for. Now the next 2 weeks are paid for. Now the next month is paid for. Now the next 3 months are paid for. We've got enough oxygen to last this long. I know what, and that's how we lived.
And every hurdle, the next one was far less ominous.
Yeah. Until you realize, holy crap, I can do this. This is possible.
Well, they say courage is not something you can teach. It has to be experienced.
It really does.
And once you decide to be courageous, that's actually what inspires people, oddly enough.
The best experiences of life are often on the other side of overcoming that fear. And
look at you now.
Yeah, look at me now. I'm sitting surrounded by Marvel icons. And having great people like you in the studio with me. So, I mean, there we go.
Oh, that's so kind.
But how do people get a hold of you? GabrielSedlak.com?
GabrielSedlak.com is the website.
Right.
And at that point, and follow me on socials. Just type my name in there, YouTube or whatever, and you'll see lots of little videos and trainings. And I'm always being real abundant with that because, not everything is a sale.
Yeah.
Right?
As relationships.
Right. And if you can be incredibly helpful, by default, people are going to ask you for help.
Of course.
But sometimes just a voice of reason, you changed my marriage or we went, there's a relationship that was restored or I actually believe in myself again. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
So, but GabrielSedlak.com and you can subscribe to my weekly video email newsletter.
Nice. On
the site. And there's all kinds of cool verbiage in there and some resources, the book and the course. And I got more coming. And of course, YouTube and all the social media. Yeah.
Well, I think ultimately we're going to have to make you a recurring guest for sure. If you're up for
it. The answer is yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You've heard it here. It's on tape.
I testify.
We have witnesses.
I shall do it.
So again, check him out, GabrielSedlak.com. You'll be able to find everything you need there to follow him along. Of course, the link is going to be in the description if you want to check that out as well. Check us out. Please rate, subscribe, follow, review, all that fun stuff. If it's a 1-star, give it a 1-star. I don't care. Just rate it. 5 stars preferable. Somewhere in the middle. Either hot or cold. I spit you out if you're lukewarm. So just kind of, make it a 5, but if it has to be a 1, fine, whatever. What's Your Problem Podcast.com. Check us out. You can follow along there. Again, Mr. Gabriel, I really appreciate you coming out, bro.
Thank you very, very much. So kind.